All right, let's jump in.
Now, or the top.
Let's jump in here to the NPS One weekly, it's a bi-weekly webinar series by Nationwide Payment Systems and NPS One. And so we've done a few product videos, and if this is the first one that you're watching, you can go to our page at nationwidepaymentsystems.com and you can go to the webinar page and you can see all the different webinars. And today we're going to jump into the subject of chargebacks. And a lot of people don't understand what chargebacks are, how they occur, and what goes on with chargebacks. So I'm going to jump in here and start to explain a little bit about chargebacks. First of all, you can't there's nothing you can put on your receipts that can stop people from doing a chargeback. So if you put on your receipt, all sales are all sales are final, that that really, that protects you when you're going to go fight the chargeback, shows all sales are final, and basically you can then, you know, you can successfully win the chargeback. Okay. So there's ways that you can put the chargeback um, ball in your court. Okay. But now let's talk about there. Sometimes you get a thing called a retrieval request. And what is that? Basically, they just want to get a copy of the receipt and an explanation of what the customer got. Now, I've been doing this for 25 years, and back a long time ago, you could literally just send in the receipts, no explanation, and that would be enough. But today, that is not enough. You have to send in a receipt. And let's talk about who decides who wins the chargeback. Now, this is the thing that I have a problem with. And the problem is that who decides is the card holder's bank. So the card issuer, the company that issued the card to the customer, they're the ones who decide. So if it's a Chase card, Bank of America, Truist, Citibank, whoever the bank is, right? Now don't be confused. You can see a card with a different name on it, but the bank who issues the card, they're the ones who decide who they're the ones who decide who wins the chargeback. And a lot of times people will be like, "Oh, American Express." Now, American Express does issue cards, but they're not all backed by American Express's bank. So, American Express's bank does not always one that's deciding. So they have American Express does have fraud department and all that. And it's not just a lost cause with American Express. But let's just talk about so that's the basics of chargebacks. But most of the things that we're seeing right now is we can divide this conversation up into two parts. Part A, card present businesses, retailers, restaurants, bars, nightclubs, you know, any kind of business where people walk in, auto repair shops, any place where you're doing face-to-face business with people. And a face-to-face atmosphere of business, you should not be key entering any cards, okay? For the most part, okay? And if you are, because if someone comes to you're especially auto repair, this is a business that literally, when I see chargebacks in these businesses, I'm just like, why are you doing this? So I'll give you an example. We had a client and they sold somebody four tires for a car. Okay. Now, the customer has to come back and get the car. And then the person came to pick the car up and said, "Oh, I don't have whatever, Billy Bob's card." Well, you shouldn't be giving them their car because they key entered it. And then it was a chargeback. And it turns out they gave them a stolen credit card. So, you have to be smart as a business owner as to what is exactly going on, with your business and and if somebody wants to rip you off. So someone orders something over the phone, but then they have to show up at your business to pick up that item. And especially if it's expensive, right? It's not a $50 item like, oh, they didn't order this cup and they're coming to pick it up. Maybe they ordered whatever. This is some sort of computer and it's $2,000. You have the right. Where's the card? You know, and what's the, and where's your driver's license? I mean, you want to make sure what's going on. So with credit card processing, people make claims, fraud, product not received, service not provided. They didn't get the product they ordered, duplicate billing. I mean, we saw one today at a bar where somebody charged $888. And then they're asked, we already sent in the receipts for the bar owner, made sure that everything was sent in properly. Now they're asking for two $7 receipts and a $15 receipt. It's ridiculous. The person's just trying to get out of paying this $800 bill they ran up for a bottle service. So you can't do that. Customer says they canceled. That's a problem. You know, and we see those type of chargebacks happening in retail stores, happening in restaurants, bars, nightclubs, things like that. That's why it's always important, especially like I've always point out, like repair type businesses. Make sure the customer's signing off that you finished the job, not that, oh, you came there and fixed their air conditioner. They give you the credit card over the phone or through a payment link. Someone's got needs to sign off on that, unless this is some customer that for years and years and years, and maybe you trust them. But a lot of times it's not that customer that's doing the chargeback. Customer does not recognize your business name. Make sure that your business name and your phone number, especially if you're is on your descriptor. Customer claims product was defective. We see that in restaurants. I laugh when I see that one. Customer claims they were overcharged. Then of course there's always friendly fraud where people are just trying to get out of paying their bill. Buyer's remorse. Somebody went to the strip club and their wife found the bill and then they're upset. That's a problem. Family member used the card. On large purchases, you should be making sure whose card it is. If you see a card and it has a man's name and it's a woman, that's a problem. Or it's a woman and it's a man's name, that's a problem. So that's in like the card present atmosphere. In the card not present atmosphere, you get these same type of complaints, but you have to prove like you shipped your product out. It was shipped on time. The person received it. You have proof from USPS, the UPS, FedEx. Most of the time, UPS and FedEx, take pictures of the front of the person's house. And, you can prove, you can go to Google Earth and get a picture of their house and show it's the same house and the product was received. So those are really, the card present world and the card not present world are two different types of chargebacks. And I want to we'll get into card not present here in a minute. But the biggest danger with chargebacks today is VAMP, VAMP, which is a new rule from Visa where they're cracking down on businesses with excessive chargebacks. Okay. And one of the problems a lot of businesses are facing today is that here we're in a world of AI and new types of credit cards, virtual cards, prepaid cards. So you can go on your Apple Wallet, right? And you're using your Apple card, and you can basically create a one-time use card. You go sign up for some free trial on software, and then basically use that one-time use card and you get your free use. And then when they go to charge your card, 7 days, 14 days, 30 days later, the transaction doesn't go through. The merchant gets a decline. They're all upset. Oh, how did this card decline? It was approved before because you just just checked to see that the card was real and it was. And that's a real problem, and this is why you have to keep your chargebacks should be under 0.5, a half a percent, but at least below 1%. I mean, some businesses are going to have chargebacks. And now with all these virtual cards, prepaid cards, you're going to see a lot of declines. And that gets me to the next thing is where you have MasterCard's new rules where it's excessive chargebacks, excessive returns, excessive declines. And this is something that businesses have to watch for. And, and then there's also new products out by Visa, ANI, where you can check the name that the person is putting into the field in a non-card present environment. But there's not enough gateways that have that included into their gateway yet. And I think more gateways and processors need to start working on, I love Visa comes out with this product, but then, there's no on ramp to like who's, the biggest gateways, authorized.net, NMI, they don't even have this available yet. So this needs to become available. But I want to talk more about retail and we'll get into non-card present merchants, but let's just talk about retail. Use the EMV chip whenever possible. Do not key enter cards. Okay. Manual entries should not really be happening. You want to make sure, especially with large transactions. I mean, I've gone into electronic stores. You go into a car dealership, you go into all types of businesses. They ask you for your driver's license because they want to make sure that credit card belongs to the person who it says it belongs to. And you also need to make sure you're keeping your receipts or you're using software that's keeping the receipts. People always asking about signatures with EMV. You're not required to get a signature. Although I would say if someone's making a large purchase, maybe there's an invoice involved and there should be signatures on the invoice and your terms and conditions that are on your invoice should be on your credit card receipts. So you want to make sure that that's possible. And when you're sending in evidence on chargebacks, they don't want to see people's PII, personal identifying information. The bank's chargeback department does not want to see their driver's license. You could write their driver's license down on the receipt and say, we have a copy of it. They don't want to see a picture of their credit card. They don't even take pictures or videos from merchants. So it's really, really important. If it's a restaurant, you want to make sure that your employees are aware of these type of fraudulent type of people trying to commit friendly fraud. They should be looking at the credit card. That's not always possible. So, when you do get chargebacks, you need to fight them because if you don't fight them, there's people that are discussing things on the dark web, on places like Reddit, where you're not actually looking and they're telling people about who's not fighting chargebacks. And that could become a problem if somebody's telling their friends, oh, this restaurant, ABC Barbecue Grill, doesn't fight chargebacks. And then people are going to go in there and run up a big tab and then tell the bank, I don't recognize this charge. And then there's going to be a chargeback and you could lose the chargeback or people's card doesn't work and you have to key it in. Just tell them, got another card, get another card from them. You should not be keying in cards because that's a little trick scammers will use. They'll damage the chip and then the chip doesn't work. Okay. That it just doesn't work. So you just need to make sure that you keep everything organized so that you can fight chargebacks. And if you use nationwide payment systems for your credit card processing, we will help you with that. If you're an e-commerce businesses, if you don't get tons of chargebacks, you have to decide. But I always recommend with e-commerce, if you're looking to do a ton of volume, you need to make sure you're using a chargeback vendor. You need to decide if you want to sign up for alerts, how you want to deal with those alerts. If you want those alerts configured to do an automatic refund, or you're going to manually do those refunds, or you just want the alerts so you can reach out to the cardholder and see what's going on. these are things that you need to decide in your business because the ultimate thing is online is you got to keep your chargeback ratio down, which is super, super important. You want to keep your chargeback ratio down, and e-commerce businesses have other things to worry about than card present businesses. And the other thing is AI is being used by everybody. So it's being used by the payment providers, by the networks, by the gateways, by your customers, by you probably. And so you want to make sure your paper, if you have customers that sign contracts with you or paperwork, stick it in AI and say, hey, I have this document and I want to make sure that, it's buttoned up so that if a card holder does a dispute, will I win the chargeback or should I change something in my paperwork? And get advice because your customer is taking your paperwork, putting it in AI and saying, how can I charge this back? And if you don't think that's happening, you're silly. It is happening. We can tell by when we see the chargeback letters come in, how somebody definitely went through some 10-page document and pointed out where the mistakes were. So you want to definitely make sure from a card present standpoint that you button up your receipts that have your clear um, policy on the bottom, like no refunds, no exchanges, all sales are final, whatever you want that to be, that should be in the footer of your receipt if you're a card present business. If you're a non-card present business and it's all on the internet, you want to make sure that your check boxes on your website clearly explain that, oh, sale items are all sales final. So you're not taking them back when you have items on sale, whatever that is, or unopened packages. We only take back an unopened package. We don't take back, used things, or maybe all sales are final because this is some kind of item, personal item, or things like that must be returned in original packaging. You have to really button up your page, have check boxes that they agree to the terms and conditions. And the most important thing is shipping. So with e-commerce, making sure people have shipping information, they have tracking information, they know when they're going to receive this product. You know, we don't accept merchant accounts where people aren't going to receive the product within 5 to 7 business days because those type of businesses are going to get a lot more chargebacks than somebody who's shipping stuff out, has inventory and all that. Now we talked about like chargeback vendors. There's a whole bunch of them. You can reach out to me if you want more information about that and set up an appointment. I'll explain to you. There are a bunch of different chargeback vendors. They don't all do exactly the same thing because some of them specialize in e-commerce, some of them specialize in mail order, telephone order, and contracts. So you really have to know that talk to more than one so you're getting the right partner if they're going to help you fight your chargebacks. And what are alerts? Let's talk about alerts. You have Ethica alerts and Verify alerts. Ethica is owned by MasterCard and Verify is owned by Visa. So you have to pay for those alerts. And those are just alerts that you get that, okay, let's say I notice a charge on my credit card that I don't know. And I'm the type of person, I'm going to go look for the charge and then I'm going to go look and see if the charge was if there's a phone number that I can call up or go on the website, see if there's somebody I can talk to. Now, if there is, like I had one the other day and I was like, oh, I canceled this. I wrote them back. I said, I canceled this and I want a refund. And they said they were going to refund me. They didn't. Then I wrote them back and said, hey, where's the refund? Then about an hour later, I saw the refund was processed. So I was happy. I didn't do anything. Another one I had, the person did not have any way for me to contact them. I know they have alerts because I immediately got a refund. So they took care of it. And that's what merchants can do with alerts. or they could have picked up the phone or emailed me and said, "Hey, what's the problem?" But they just, I think they kind of bamboozled me into thinking that they were one company when they weren't. So before you charge your credit card, sometimes check the URL and make sure, what you're signing up for. And you need to make sure, what's going on with chargebacks at all times. One thing to pay attention to is how do you receive the chargeback letters? Are they coming in the mail? Do you get them in the email? Do you get to have a fax? I know a lot of times, a lot of the banks and credit card processors use companies that fax the chargeback letters out. So you can set up an e-fax, $10 a month, and then they'll fax it, but then it really goes into your email. So you need to make sure you get a chargeback. When is it due? You need to respond before it's due, because if you don't respond before it's due, you're going to lose your money. So understand that. Then you want to understand the reason code. What is the customer claiming? Sometimes there's multiple reason codes and you need to address them all. Customer saying, I didn't, they went, I love these at restaurants. They went to a restaurant, they went to a bar, and then they say they didn't get what they paid for. Now that's ridiculous because everybody knows you go to a restaurant, you order your food, you get served, and then you pay at the end. But the thing is that the chargeback department is not going to go look up what kind of business you have. It doesn't matter whether, let's say you deliver you do car shipping, or let's say you do auto repair, or you're an air conditioning company. They don't go to your website. You need to explain to them what you do and what did the customer buy and how did the process happen. It's all about the facts. Probably some people listening to this video never watched the TV show Dragnet, but detective used to say, just the facts, ma'am, all the time. Sergeant Friday, he wanted the facts. Let's get the facts. Yeah, you don't want to get into a personal thing. Oh, this person was an a-hole. They might be, but you don't want to say that in the letter because they don't want to go back and forth about anything. They just want the facts. The customer walked into my business. They wanted 4 tires put on their car. We put 4 tires on their car. They came back. They picked up the card. They took their card. They put it in our credit card machine. We ran the charge. It went through. We have the VIN number for the car, the license plate. The owner is the owner of the car. And boom, you're going to win your charge back. But if you don't have all this information, you might not win your charge back. So you want to make sure you have receipts, you have invoices. If you're non-card present, you're shipping, you have tracking numbers, you have proof of delivery, or you have signed agreements, you have emails from this customer. You have the receipts from your credit card machine or your POS system. You have some screenshots or service logs, or let's say you're a SaaS company, you need to go to your logs and pull out, oh, how many times did Johnny log into your software and prove that this person is using your product, and you want to have a focused rebuttal letter. And a lot of times I tell people, you can use AI, type something up, stick it in AI and have them stick out have it spit out the letter. I've actually trained AI on how to do this, and it knows all the rules of the chargebacks and all that. So, we will help our customers that just have, especially retailers and restaurants and bars and nightclubs, because e-commerce is a lot more difficult. You have to pull together a lot more things in e-commerce. You're going to have to send in a screenshot of your checkout page. You're going to have to send in the gateway receipt. You're going to have to send in a whole bunch of things. So you have to be really careful. And sometimes for e-commerce companies, because it's so many pieces of evidence that you need to pull together, it's better to use a chargeback company to deal with these things. This is highly recommended. I recommend this to everybody. If you're e-commerce, you need a chargeback company. If you don't know which one to use, you can reach out to me, book an appointment. We'll go over, hey, you could use this company, that company. We can do a referral. I've talked to probably at least 7 or 8 different chargeback companies, If you're a merchant with us, we review everything for our merchants. We review everything. Oh, what do you want on the bottom of your receipts? What do you need here? What do you want there? We look at your checkout page. We look at your terms and conditions, your refund policy, return policy, cancellation policies on your website. We make sure everything is aligned so that you can win. But for ecom, I definitely recommend setting up alerts at a minimum and engaging with somebody who could fight the chargebacks. And you want to basically submit the letter, and then you want to have all your receipts. And the letter needs to be very focused, no rants, no complaining about the person. And then you want to make sure that it gets sent in. And if you're using an online portal, obviously you go there and you upload it all. And if you're using fax, then you're going to have to call up and make sure they received your letter. But you want to address every complaint the person had. If they got 10 complaints, you want to have 10 complaints. So let's see what makes a good chargeback letter. Clear, short, organized. You have your name at the top, your merchant number, the case number, the amount of the transaction. You want to tell them what the evidence is, how you did business. You want to make sure you address the reason or reasons that the person is doing a chargeback. Super, super important. You want to explain your policies. So if you're a restaurant, yes, the customer came in, they ordered dinner, there was 4 people at the table. Here's their check. They paid after they ate, and they never complained to management. So we want our money back. You have to have a really good, clear letter. The customer ordered food and beverages. We served them. They consumed the items, then paid. This is not duplicate. The attached itemized receipt and POS record show the details, the time, the date, and the amount. So you want to make sure everything is super, super clear in there about how it works. What gets merchants in trouble? Ignoring retrieval requests, ignoring chargebacks, ignoring the deadline, not keeping receipts, vague product descriptions on your website. You didn't have the customer sign something when they picked up their car, or you fix their air conditioner or whatever that is. Taking a phone order and then not documenting anything, and ignoring signs that you could be dealing with a scammer. Letting staff manually key enter cards. This should be a no-no. Should tell staff you cannot do that. People have multiple credit cards, and you have to do this. Fraud tools. If you have a website, you need to make sure that you go into your gateway, whatever the gateway is. You need to make sure the velocity filters are turned on. If you don't know how to work the velocity filters, you either contact your agent, call the gateway company up, whoever, and get help with, hey, I need to explain these velocity filters to me. Those velocity filters are there to block things like somebody attacking your website and trying to authorize 1,000 credit cards or 10,000 or 50,000 credit card numbers. I have seen this happen, and I've seen customers get billed because they don't have these velocity filters on. Make sure your velocity filters, fraud check filters, AVS, address verification. Customers have to verify the street address. So their street address is 1122 2nd Avenue. What is their zip code? And then the most important, the CVV2, which is 3 digits on the back of a Visa, MasterCard, Discover, or 4 digits for American Express. So it's super important that when you go look at your AVS filters, you can even set your filters up where, cards that don't meet the standard of AVS is approved, ZIP is approved, and CVV2, that you put those into the queue where you have to manually approve them. And then, the other thing is let's say you get an order of a merchant. I'll give an example of a client, a cigar merchant and the cigar merchant get an order for 5 humidors. Okay. Well, you're not going to really get an order for 5 humidors or something else. Somebody goes and they order 500 cups off your website and you don't really get orders for 500 cups. Well, what you need to do is call that customer on the phone and verify that it's a real order. And then, verify their address. A lot of companies only, like we have a client that does collectibles. They only ship to the billing address. They will not ship to another address. If you want it shipped to another address, they send you a document. You have to fill it out, DocuSign it before they'll send it to another address. So it's super, super important that you really figure out what's going on with all of these different things that you have to deal with. So, tips for card present businesses. Here's my tips. Always EMV the card. If it's a large purchase, make sure the name on the card matches the person, or ask for a driver's license, especially if it's a very large purchase, because you don't want somebody coming in there with a stolen credit card. I mean, listen, go to Best Buy, try to buy a computer or a TV. They ask for your driver's license. There's a reason for that. They would take immense amount of losses with stolen credit cards. Somebody steals a credit card, the first place they go is the gas station, because they don't have to show it to anybody. The next spot they go to is go buy something expensive. Somebody steals your wallet, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to go, they're going to go do that. And then, you want to make sure you're protected, and I always tell people, make sure you have Credit Karma or free Equifax or whatever the credit agency is, and make sure you're looking at those reports, when they send you an email, and know who's checking your credit, protect your social security number, protect your identity. So you got to make sure. So for card present businesses, don't key enter cards unless you have to. And especially on expensive purchases, never key enter the cards. It's going to turn out to be fraud. No one's walking in your store and you sell $50 items and buying 10 $50 gift cards. Check the card, make sure, ask the person for their driver's license. And you want to make sure that you're protected to win chargebacks. You can literally use AI, Claude or OpenAI, take your checkout page, stick it in there, say, oh, do I have a good checkout page? Do I need to change anything on here so that I can protect myself from getting chargebacks? Look at your terms and conditions. There's also a company called, we had on the podcast a while ago, that does policies for websites, engage with companies who do that, or look at put your policies into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you use, and make sure that they're tightened up so that, if you do get a chargeback, you can win. That's the most important thing. You can't stop chargeback. You can have somebody sign a paper and say, I'm not going to do a chargeback. You could say all sales are final, but that's how that is. And then ultimately what you want to do is you want to have your business protected so that you are protected. If you do get a chargeback, you can win. So that's what I have for you. And if you want to book an appointment, go to nationwidepaymentsystems.com. You can book an appointment there with me, Alan Kopelman. We'll talk about your business. Go over what you're doing. Maybe you walk away from it with some information. There's no charge, or maybe you want to do business with us. So if your business is getting chargebacks, retrieval requests, fraud alerts, or you're worried about your merchant account being shut down, Nationwide Payment Systems can help you review your payment setup, chargeback process, paperwork, website, fraud tools, dispute response strategy, and then work on that with you. Everybody should have a strategy of how they're dealing with things. To me, it's upfront that you have protection in place so that when you do get a chargeback, you can win, or at least put the ball on your side of the court better. then deal with it after you had an avalanche of chargebacks. And then all of a sudden you're scrambling and you're like, oh, now I have all these chargebacks. What do I do? People never plan to fail, but they fail to plan. So you have to have a good plan going in, and that way you can protect your business. So thank you for listening to today's webinar, whether you listen to this live and we didn't get we didn't get very many questions. I tried to answer quite a bit of them. And or you're listening to this recorded, thank you very much for your time, and also book an appointment and we can help you with whatever you need from a chargeback perspective, preventing, and if you have questions, let me know. All right. Everybody have a great day and thank you for listening to today's webinar.